Welcome to the next episode of What's Your Wheelhouse? I'm your host, Megan Bauer, Head of Customer Success at Spinwheel. Today, I am here with Mike Eshelman, an expert in many things. But Mike, do you want to take a moment and introduce yourself?
Yeah, thanks for having me. Appreciate it. So, Mike Eshelman, I've been in the mortgage industry for 22, 23 years or so. Kind of tripped and fell into the industry where a recruiter hooked me into an interview and I became a loan officer pretty much right out of college. Being a loan officer was great. It's a really hard job. I learned a ton. I knew it wasn't going to be my career, but it was the early 2000s and it was fantastic income, helped me pay off some student loans. Ultimately, I landed on the marketing side of the business where I became very passionate and started running marketing organizations in 2012. And I've pretty much been doing that ever since. I was the chief marketing officer at Mr. Cooper. And then after Mr. Cooper opened up Next Percent, which is my consulting firm. And I've been working on launching my own mortgage platform called Next Rate, which is not a mortgage lender. It's a way for mortgage marketers to acquire leads in the most efficient way possible. I've been in and around mortgage for my whole career. I could say I tried getting out of it a couple of times, but it just sucks you right back in. It's a fascinating industry, and I've absolutely fallen in love with it, and it's been really good to me.
Awesome. Well, we're super excited to have you on What's Your Wheelhouse today. So, you're an expert in mortgages for sure, but your wheelhouse specifically is data-driven marketing. So, what should people understand about this right now that they probably do not?
Yeah, I mean, I'd say, well, one thing, it's really interesting because how I fell in love with marketing was it's very numbers oriented. It's very data driven. You get a lot of data that can lead you to making changes and understanding what the right decision could be. And I like that type of concreteness. Where I started getting really passionate about it is not just when a lead comes in and how well does it convert, but what actually happens from the loan officer experience and how can you make it better from a loan officer side of things to help them convert better. So I really started getting obsessed with knowing the numbers, knowing the metrics, knowing what drives conversions, and not just from a how much did we spend in marketing and how many loans did we fund, but which type of marketing channels are driving greater revenue, which type of loan products. And then you start to see which individual loan officers start doing better and convert better with certain types of leads. So that way, when a lead actually comes in the door, analyzing that lead and all the data points that come along with it, and matching it up to loan officers who tend to perform the best with that type of lead type. So I've gotten really interested over the last decade in understanding how to maximize that whole from top of funnel through loan officer conversion. A lot of people don't understand how impactful it could be if you can master matching the right lead with the right loan officer. To give you one example, so this was back in 2015, 16 or so. We were bringing in a bunch of leads for about 60 loan officers. And I just noticed one particular loan officer, whenever he got a Colorado lead, he converted 3 to 4 times higher than the floor average converting Colorado leads. So I sat down with him and started asking him questions like, why are you so good at Colorado? Turns out he lived there for about 10 years. He lived in Denver, Boulder, Fort Collins, like you name it. So whenever he got a Colorado borrower, he immediately was building rapport. Oh, I lived there. I lived in this area. I went to this park all the time and skated and all this other stuff. And immediately he just built a great rapport. And so we converted him incredibly well. Started noticing whenever you get a lead of a veteran who's looking for a VA loan, and you have a loan officer who has served as well, they immediately have a bond. And I would hear like, "Oh, you're a Marine, I'm a Marine," and that immediately connects them. But it also happens when you have someone who, let's say, is in the Air Force and is talking to a Marine. they start chirping each other, right? But it's in a friendly way of immediately building that bond and it starts converting better. So it became real fascinating. It can be incredibly impactful if you can get that right from a marketing, sales operations perspective.
Okay, that's like deep into the recipe of success there. So it's almost like, not speed dating, but matchmaking on the back end, I guess.
Mhm.
Is there, so when you're able to identify who to match with, like, is there any sort of special, I guess, like practices or things you do for mapping those leads to the right loan officer or any sort of magic there that makes that happen?
But it's definitely easier said than done. Putting it in practice, you have a lot of considerations, and it's usually when you have enough loan officers that you can make those decisions. And it's not, you have to look at if a Colorado in that instance, right, from the Colorado example, if a Colorado lead comes in, is that loan officer available right now? Because speed to contact attempt or speed to answer is incredibly important. So if they're available, push it over to him or her. If not, you got to go to the next best. And so, being able to operationalize that is the real challenging part. But there's some easy things you can do and try and plug in, and that's understanding who on your floor is a veteran. And then when the leads come in, if they mark a box that says, yes, they're a veteran, you can try and match those. And that's kind of an easier first step. When you get down to it, and if you have enough loan officers, if you have a large enough marketing budget, you're actually running and creating models on the back end that there are attributes that you think are so minor, but actually adding them up and scoring the leads and matching them up with loan officers that are scored in a similar way, now you start getting real deep and detailed and you're gaining inches that are very, very meaningful to the bottom line.
Got it. So it can really become sophisticated for sure.
Absolutely.
Okay, what's one of the kind of silliest things that you've heard about this space, or what are people getting wrong about data-driven marketing?
So I help a lot of clients and I see people who I don't work with who, they start going down a marketing channel because they want to expand and get into, whether it's paid search or direct mail or some other marketing channel. And they get started and they dip their toe in it and they feel they're not having success yet. And they pivot and back out and go somewhere else and say this didn't work. So in mortgage, by and large, I guess you could say, like generally speaking, you have to spend $2,000 to $3,000 marketing dollars in order to get a funded loan. So I see people who go in and they spend a few $1,000s and they don't see a funding yet and say, "Ah, I don't know if I want to waste any more money." And or maybe they go in if it's a larger client, they start spending 50,000 or $100,000 on a campaign and they aren't seeing the success yet. And so they stop because they don't want to burn any more money. Doing enough research up front to understand if that channel is appropriate for you, which can mean many things. For instance, if it's direct mail, you can't predict when the consumers are going to call in. So do you have a call center that's staffed enough hours to pick up the call when that call comes in? Because if you don't answer the call, you're not going to get the business. So is it the right channel for you? If it is, you have to go in and you have to go in strong with a commitment and intent to see it through and see how ultimately all the milestone metrics are performing. What is your contact rate? What is your application rate? What is your approved application rate? What is your cost per lock? And then ultimately, how many of those locks are pulling through to a funded loan? And if you can improve any of those, what would that do to your ultimate return on ad spend, which is the ultimate metric, from a marketing perspective? What is your return on ad spend on that campaign? And seeing, are you close or are you not close at all? And you can't improve any of those milestones enough to make it work. So really looking in a detailed way to see, is a campaign working? Is it not working? Because if you pull out of it and then you go into another channel and you do the same thing, now you're really just wasting money and you're not figuring out what is going to work for you.
Yeah, worth it to see it through. What is the average or expected time frame, I guess people could see the results of the channels that they go down? Are we talking weeks, months, years, or not years, but
Usually, well, so with, let's say, traditional refinances, you're probably looking about 3 months. Like you can start seeing what the results are in a 3 month window. Reverse mortgages, you're more 6 to 8, maybe even 9 months
Mhm.
because it's such a longer process. There's counseling involved that the consumer needs to go through. It's a different product. There's a lot more thinking that has to go on in terms of, is this the right loan for this borrower? Purchases, that's a big challenge because you could talk to consumers and do pre-approvals, and they might say, "Great, I want to go with you once I find the house." And how long will it take for them to find the house? That's a question. Will they ever find a house? Will they get cold feet once they start realizing, okay, the down payment's going to drain our savings account, and then the monthly payment is going to stretch us more than would be comfortable? So it depends on kind of the product that you're targeting. But I'd say most people that I know that I work with are doing as much refinance business as they can. And for campaigns like that, yeah, you're really looking at about 90 days. And then you can see sooner if it looks like it's going to work because you don't have to wait for a loan to get funded to know if it's going to work. You know how many loans you lock and what percentage of those will pull through ultimately to a funded loan. If we say that's 75 or 80%, well, when you get a committed borrower that sends you your documents and you lock their loan, you can just do the math and say, hey, if 75% of these are going to pull through to a funded loan, now I can project what my cost per funded loan and my return on ad spend is going to be.
Spoken like a true data-driven marketer. That it's funny that last example you say resonates with me, like unknown timelines as a buyer, right? When I went to go get pre-qualified for my first house, you don't know exactly what you get qualified for, what you can get qualified for. Then you start looking, and then there's a time limit on it, so that can really kind of fluctuate. It's a little bit of a chicken and the egg situation. Like, do you pre-qualify someone? Then how long do they take? And yeah.
Certainly, and back in 2020, it was February of 2020. I was in escrow in a house in LA and sending all my paperwork. Got everything going with the lender. We were doing our inspections on the house, and things came back on the inspections that were a surprise to the point where we backed out. We just weren't comfortable with the things that were coming back on those inspection reports. So called the loan officer, said we're backing out. And she's phenomenal and said, no problem. Let's get this thing canceled and let me know when you're ready for, when you find another home. Like as much of a heartbreak as that is for a loan officer to get a notification that a loan's canceling, if you treat it well and you just are patient and you wait, next thing you know, 4 months later, I was calling her back saying, all right, we found our next house. Let's go.
Yeah, it's funny. Fast forward like 6 months into that time period, you had to have everything ready to go when you wanted to buy a house because it was obviously highly competitive. Times were
Absolutely.
completely different then during mid-COVID. So yeah, yeah. Okay. You talked a little bit about some of the things that people are getting wrong. What are some of the challenges that you're dealing with in this space?
Yeah, so I think biggest challenge right now is everyone's trying to figure out AI. How is it
Mm.
going to fit into their business? Um, People are putting a lot of investment in AI with, I would say, not a lot of expertise. There's almost a lot of trust whenever someone calls them and it sounds cool. They're exploring an implementation and figuring out how that pans out because in mortgage, I would say 70 to 80% of the industry uses a core loan origination system that is really well known and it's very stale and difficult to integrate with. And so there's a lot of challenges of figuring out how new technologies fit into that kind of archaic core platform that so much of the industry is on. So that's a real challenge. That's all stuff that's within companies' control. Outside of their control, we have a new Fed chair there's a conflict or war, there's inflation, there's rates were supposed to be going down throughout the year. Now rates are supposed to be going up before they come down. And so managing those cycles is very challenging. So is it time to hire more loan officers? Is it not time to hire more loan officers? All of that, all of those business decisions are very difficult to make. So I'd say that's a lot of the challenge that's going on is those two, AI and trying to manage the chaos of where rates are going or not going.
Yeah, the external factors definitely have a significant impact on how you can operate or the considerations or decisions, like you've said, that you need to make for the future. So, doubling down a little bit on the AI piece, because we have to talk about it, of
Of
course.
course.
Where do you see the biggest opportunity for AI in this space?
Yeah, this is going to be from my perspective, which doesn't mean it is the biggest opportunity because there's areas of the business that I know enough about, but not enough to know how impactful AI is going to be. Underwriting, closing, post-closing, who knows? Where I'm seeing a great opportunity is where a lot of folks are challenged is doing proper cadence and follow-up of leads that are coming in. And so allowing AI to handle whether it's through prioritization and you're making the phone calls. So you either get an indication, hey, it's time to call Jane Smith back, or here's a new lead, and immediately that lead is being called by an AI voice agent that can do a little bit of I don't want to say pre-qualifying of interest, qualifying of interest and intent. So I see folks out there using AI voice to make those dials at scale with accuracy and voice that is indistinguishable from a human, and then transferring into a loan officer, if and when they're ready. So there's been some great opportunities fairly recently. I mean, a year ago it was terrible. Now it's pretty incredible. But how does all that pan out with regulations? We're in a highly regulated space. So is that an opportunity that could further grow into a voice AI agent that is really good at a 1 to 2 minute conversation, but starts to break down after that? Does that go to 5 minutes, 10 minutes? Now do we start getting completed applications through an AI agent? I think that's an incredible opportunity because I, for one, as a consumer, when I call in to any company and I'm on hold, waiting and waiting and waiting, it's so annoying. And I'll hang up after a certain amount of time and I'll try someone else. Or calling and getting an IVR that says, you know, if you'd like a refinance, say refinance. You're like, refi. I'm sorry, I don't understand that. Right. And it's just like chaos. But being able to have an agent where if no human's available, or even if they are available and you only want them handling completed applications or partially completed applications, there's a massive opportunity to help more borrowers in that way. I wouldn't mind as a consumer
Mhm.
having a conversation with the AI if I truly knew it was a representative of the company and going through that data intake process to find out what I qualify for.
It's funny, it's a little bit of a tale as old as time, just in terms of communication, like having that quick outreach, and it all goes back to the relationship building and stuff you talked about earlier of just some of the loan officers with the highest success rate build that rapport, right? So if you can get in front of things quickly, you can move people along, you know that the person on the other end, even if it's an AI agent, is going to answer your questions, then you have high confidence and will theoretically move through the process or continue through the process. So.
Yeah, and I mean, a lot of the friction right now with loan officers is they have to go through a 30 or 40-minute conversation, part of which or half of which is the battle of trying to get the social security number so you can pull their credit report and see what you're working with if they even qualify. But then once you get over that hump, then you can actually get to solutioning. If you can get to solutioning with a human significantly quicker instead of a loan officer speaking to 3 or 4 consumers about their application a day, if you can now talk to 8 or 10, you're being way more efficient.
We at Spinwheel know that challenge all too well.
I do. That's why I
Yeah.
love the company so much.
Awesome. Well, Mike, it was great to hear about kind of your data-driven marketing expertise, but also how that relates to your experience early on in marrying those two together. But now for the fun of it, not that that wasn't fun, but we'd love to know a little bit more about what's your personal wheelhouse. What are you really into right now?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, I bought a house mid 2020. It was certainly a COVID move. We were living in West LA. We ended up moving a bit north, closer to where my wife grew up, and got a good size piece of land that came with 200 avocado trees. Wasn't something that we were searching for. I mean, we love the house. The house checks all the boxes for us, and it just so happened to come with a bunch of avocado trees. And like my grandparents were farmers. I never thought I would ever be, calling myself a farmer, but here I am with a bunch of avocado trees and need to learn how to take care of them. So, um, I get obsessed over the details. So I started digging into how to maintain avocado trees. How much should you be watering them? How often should you be fertilizing them? How do you get more yield each season? And started finding out, stuff like there's two different types of avocado trees. There's type A and type B. Type A is your typical Hass avocado that you see in the store that has, kind of that bumpy skin, that thick skin. That's a Hass avocado. And by the way, those are usually sold in stores because those transport better because they have thick skin. Then you have type B trees, and those, like bacon avocado, they have thinner skin. They're creamier avocados. They don't travel as well. They'll bump and bruise and look terrible in the store, which is why you often don't see them. But because they have different flowering cycles during like the pollination process, they open up at different times. If you have a mix of A and B avocados, trees, you get a ton more avocados because pollination is significantly easier. And that, I mean, I could geek out on a bunch of other stuff, but I found out that, obviously having bees
Yep.
helps pollinate trees and, fruit trees and stuff. Um, Bees can communicate with one another and tell them where to go to get, pollen and stuff like that. Um, Bumblebees can't. So you might have bees who fly a really far distance to get to the orange trees, lemon trees, and other trees that are sweeter, and they'll ignore the avocado trees. Bumblebees can't communicate, so they just go to whatever's close. So if you have bumblebees in your orchard, pollination will be significantly better than if you have just honeybees. So, anyways, that's what the last 6 or so years I've just gone deeper and deeper down the rabbit hole of learning about avocado trees, and so yeah, that's kind of become my hobby.
Yeah, I bet you never thought you would know so much about avocados at this stage.
Definitely not.
What's the best trick for picking out a ripe avocado in stores?
Oh, so it's so fun fact with avocados is at least here for season, we'll start picking some avocados in March, but they'll stay on the tree until October. And so you can just go out, cut them off, and give them a week or two to ripen. If you look where the stem connects to the fruit, if you see that it's green, then I mean, of course, you can kind of squish them a little bit and see if they're softer. But if you see that it's green, they're fresher off the tree, and it's going to take you a week or two. If it's kind of turned a bit brown, it's probably much closer to being ready to go, or it's ready to go. Or if you see what kind of looks like a little bit of white, almost mold, it's a bad avocado. You're going to cut it open, it's going to be brown and look ugly inside.
Are there any hacks for making your avocado ripen quicker? Like put it in a paper bag or
That's exactly what we do. Yeah,
are those so those are real. That's not a
yeah, we put it in a brown paper bag, put it in a drawer so it's in a dark spot, and it helps accelerate it a bit. And then if you cut open an avocado and you're only going to eat half of it, if you fill a bowl with water, put the avocado upside down so that the green is, the actual avocado fruits upside down in the water, and put it in the fridge or whatever, it's going to stay fresh for days versus it just kind of going bad and looking brown after a day or so.
Okay, that's a new one. I haven't heard that. So excellent. I love that. Okay, one more question on this, although I could ask you a million more about avocado. What is the name? This will be good for any trivia that I have. Like, do you get like a bushel of avocados? Like, what do you call, I guess, a group of a group of your harvest?
Oh, I've never been asked that or no, I don't know. That's a good one. I don't know.
All
I can't
right.
even come up with something funny. So no, um
You
I'm a
guys just say you're
blank.
going out and collecting avocados or harvesting them?
Yeah, I mean, we'll have pickers who come and they'll depending on the price, on the week and stuff like that, we'll have pickers come out and pick them and sell them. We'll mark some trees that they don't touch, so we have plenty for ourselves. Um, so we'll do that often. But yeah, it's usually it's interesting. I mean, in Mexico, it's a seasonal thing, right? There's so many avocados that come from Mexico, and they do it year round. And then, out here, usually the pickers are pretty busy April and May. And anything after that is the prices are kind of down, so everyone just kind of keeps them for themselves.
Got it. So the season just ended not too long ago.
Yeah, it just ended, and I need to get out there and I usually try to pick like 10 to 15 each weekend. And I forgot to do it this last week, and that way we have a constant supply of, avocado toast, guacamole, whatever.
Yeah, with 200 trees, I feel like you can never run out. So that's awesome. I love that. That's a new one for us on What's Your Wheelhouse from a personal wheelhouse perspective, avocado farming. So thank you for sharing. And thank you for
Got it.
sharing so much about your background and data-driven marketing. We appreciated having you on the show here today. And so we look forward to speaking again soon.
Thanks for having me.
Okay.